We live.
We're live. I hope everyone can hear us and see us.
If you
Hi,
can
everyone.
hear us,
Welcome to
comment.
our first summit. Yeah, comment if you can hear us and see us, so we know. I can see there's people jumping on already. Yay! Hi.
Awesome.
So yeah, today is our first talk. So thank you all for joining us. I'm Claire Eames. I'm one of the co-founders of the Conscious Parenting Association South Africa, and next to me is Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm going to be handling a little bit of the technical side of things. So if there are any glitches, I apologize in advance. If you have any comments, if you can't hear us or something, please let us know in the comments below. And yeah, so we're going to be, we're doing this live, but obviously we know that there are a lot of you who can't make it because being a parent, being a working parent, being a non-working parent, whichever one you are, there's never enough time in the day. So please, if you are watching a replay, you can still comment. We'll get to all your comments, and we will answer them either in separate videos or we'll type back with you. So yeah, please just engage with us. That's why we're doing this. And so I'm going to hand it over to Claire now. She's going to bring up our first interviewees. And we've got so much to cover today. It's going to be such an awesome talk. So go for it, Claire, and I'll bring on Jade and Tamryn.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, Jade. Hi, Tamryn. Thanks for joining us. We've got a little bit of a lag. We're just going to wait for everything to catch up. So we've got an amazing talk today, talking all about pregnancy during this pandemic. And we've got the lovely Tamryn and the lovely Jade, and they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves. And yeah, I'll hand over to Tamryn first. Tamryn, tell us about you.
Thank you so much, Claire, and thank you so much for having us today on the interview. We are super excited to be launching CPA with this interview. So yes, so as you said, my name is Tamryn. I am a birth doula as well as a hypnobirthing childbirth educator. So just to give you a little bit of background as to what that entails, not everyone has heard of a birth doula or knows what we do. So in the famous words of Randy Patterson, she says that a doula instills strength and reduces fear. And I think that that's one of the best descriptions of what we actually do. The tasks that we do are so broad, but if we have to look at the sort of three pillars of what a doula does, we provide physical, emotional, and educational support to parents during their pregnancy, their labor, their birth, and the postpartum period. And then in addition to that, I'm a hypnobirthing childbirth educator. So hypnobirthing is an evidence-based antenatal course for parents who desire a natural childbirth. And it just allows them to have an easier, more comfortable birth and to have that positive, empowering birth experience through using deep relaxation tools, visualizations, and learning all about the physiology of the body and what is normal during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum period. So how I got into this, as with many birth workers, it started with my own birth story. So yes, I was pregnant. I went on maternity leave at 38 weeks and she only came 4 weeks later. So I had a good month of waiting at home for her to make her appearance. And in that time, I was watching an inordinate amount of birth videos and I was so impassioned and I really became enthralled with everything birth and pregnancy. And after having my wonderful hypnobirth with my own daughter, I realized that this is the direction that I need to go in. I need to find myself in this sacred space and supporting mothers in this special way. And so that's how I came to do the training that I did and find myself where I am today.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing, Tamryn, and I'm so happy to have you with us. And now I'll hand over to Jade. Jade, if you can tell us your story of how you got into this. Oh, you just need to unmute. Someone needs to unmute. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Thanks so much, Claire. Thanks for having me. Super excited to chat with you ladies today. So as you said, my name is Jade Foyun. I'm from Sacred Soul Birth Services. I'm a sacred pregnancy facilitator as well as a full spectrum doula and a hypnobirthing childbirth educator. I got into this work simply because of my own experiences. I've given birth in 3 different ways. I fell pregnant at the tender age of 18 and only found out I was pregnant at 23 weeks, 5 months pregnant. The reason for this was mainly because I was completely out of touch with my body. Upon going to a gynecologist, went for my scan, and he looked at me and said, "You're very skinny. You should have a cesarean." I said, "Okay, cool," because I trusted my care provider. Booked in for the cesarean, did absolutely no childbirth education during my pregnancy, did no research on really what my options were for my birth as well. And I had what I would say was an incredibly traumatic birth. My son, Caden, was separated from me for 7 hours. So I only got to meet him 7 hours later. I was unable to breastfeed at the time because the nurses on duty at the time told me that I had the incorrect nipples for breastfeeding. I was born with inverted nipples. I eventually, unfortunately, developed severe postpartum depression and was at such a young age. In 2015, my son, this had taken me into the darkest parts of my life, of my soul, and it really broke me completely open. Upon losing my son, I really came to meet my soul and his soul, and the understanding of my life experiences and the culmination of them to that point. I promised myself that I would work on healing my life, on healing my relationship with my own life, with my family, with my mother. And through doing that, I was very blessed to meet a lovely man and fall pregnant with our beautiful son, Malachi. And upon falling pregnant, I said, there is no ways I'm giving birth like that ever again. And I found out about my options to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. I booked an appointment with a specialist gynecologist and walked into his room with my papers, with all my resources and my evidence-based resources, with that number in my head, uterine rupture, the chances 0.2%. I sat in front of him, my husband and I, and we told him this is what we are going to do. We're going to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. And he looked at my husband and he said, "Well, you don't want your wife to die, do you?" And this made me really angry, very, very angry. I did more research and I found out about doulas. In finding out about doulas, I also found out about becoming a bereavement doula. And because of my own experience with loss, I was deeply, deeply, deeply desiring to hold space for women in this way. And thus my training as a bereavement doula, before my training as a birth doula. I had an absolutely incredible vaginal birth at Genesis Maternity Clinic with my little Malachi, with an incredible doula, and her support and my experience with her encouraged me to also support happy births. And that is how I decided to become a birth doula. In my work as a birth doula, I've actually come to see that there's a bit of a spiritual disconnect between pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. And from my own experience, when I've been able to really look at life from more of a spiritual, conscious perspective, I've been able to really cope with life better. And in order to be a better mother, I've had to find ways to be able to cope. And my grounding point for that has been my spirituality. And that is why I really, really focus on my work as a spiritual doula, as a sacred birth doula, to create opportunities for women to also have this experience.
Thanks so much, Jade. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know it jumped a little bit in between, but I think we heard almost all of it. There was just one little point, but your story is just phenomenal. And I hope that the people listening now and the people who watch the replay, it can inspire them to see how important it is to have that spiritual or emotional connection during their birth. It was something I was going to share myself. It was one of the reasons I wanted to start the association actually in the beginning, is because the start of my journey with my children when they were born, I felt that was lacking. There was no emotional or spiritual support whatsoever. So I'm excited to hear what we're going to talk about today, and I hope that this talk inspires more people to learn more about what you guys do. So let's kick it off. Okay, those of you watching, please add questions to the comments. If you're watching the replay, you can put replay and still put a question, and we'll answer when we get to it. But we're going to start off, and I'm just going to ask Tamryn, I'll start with you. Considering now we are in this pandemic, pregnancy on its own already has its anxieties and fears. What do you feel are some of the anxieties and fears coming up because it's a pandemic on top of that?
Thanks, Lee. Yeah. Look, the COVID pandemic has really brought up a lot of additional fears and anxieties and many other emotions for birthing parents during this time that they wouldn't usually experience during pregnancy. So as birth workers, as part of today's interview, we really just want to be able to provide some useful information on how parents can cope, how you can deal with some of these anxieties, and just some useful tools that you can use to get through these very strange times that we find ourselves birthing in. So what we did was we took a few different social media platforms and we asked a few groups of South African parents who were both pregnant during the pandemic or who gave birth during the pandemic. And we just asked them what sort of fears and challenges are they facing during this time. So I think perhaps we'll start off with those fears that are more pregnancy based, and then we can move on to the birth and possibly postpartum phase that we're looking at. So the first challenge that was echoed by nearly every participant in our questions was this absolute loneliness and a real lack of social connectedness that they're experiencing during this time. Pregnancy is a time when you would usually have baby showers in person with all of your loved ones, when you would be attending antenatal classes in person, making friends and just sharing your experiences with other people at the same, sort of time in their journey. But obviously with COVID, it's brought so many challenges that now many of these sorts of activities are moving online. You as a pregnant person are possibly having to not attend special family gatherings, weddings and possibly funerals and graduations and all of these sort of social events where we would usually connect with everyone, right down to something as simple as your best friend possibly not being able to drop off that cute teddy they found in the shop the other day, especially for your baby that is on the way. So yes, this loneliness, it's really quite something else.
Yeah. I actually, all of those things you've said, I can't even imagine, because I myself was not pregnant during the pandemic, and there were already things, I can't imagine that on top of all the other things that we worry about. So I was going to ask Jade, because knowing that your pregnancy was during this pandemic with your little girl, I'd love to hear your actual firsthand experience of that, if you want to share it with us.
Sure. So it was when I found out I was pregnant with little Jasmine, I had already envisioned how she was going to be born. She was going to be born at the beach. I was planning on having a free birth at the time. I had seen myself in visualizations of dreaming up and really bringing my spirit baby in, that I was floating in the ocean, in labor with her. And suddenly we were in the middle of a pandemic and we weren't allowed to see anyone anymore. And at first it was really frightening. I must be honest, I started my hypnobirthing facilitator training in the March of the pandemic. So without my hypnobirthing training, I really feel like I would have struggled a lot more. So I was doing daily visualizations, daily relaxations. But the biggest thing was no baby shower anymore, no blessing way. I really wanted to have a mother blessing. There were so many things that I really, really wanted, just like other mothers. And just the idea of that not happening alone was very, very frustrating. And then, of course, the checkups with the midwife, and my husband has to stay in the car with a toddler, and you're in the checkup rooms and you can hear your toddler is giving your husband a hard time. And yeah, it was really, really difficult in that aspect. And for me, I was planning a home birth, so in my experience, because I was planning a home birth, I wasn't worrying about having to labor in a mask, or my partner having to labor in a mask, or not having my or my birth photographer. So I know that was one thing with thought, just not being able to hug your friends,
Yeah.
to have your friends feel your belly and bond with your baby in the
I'm
womb.
just going to jump in. We seem to be jumping. Sorry, Jade. I'm going to just carry on with Tamryn. For some reason, it was jumping there. I know Jade's got load shedding, so she's using the phone. Bad timing. I'm going to jump on to the next thing I was wondering. Tamryn, you can share with me. I know a lot of women already are anxious about what anxiety, what the effect could be on their unborn baby. And I know, especially with the pandemic, a lot of women are mentioning, what's going to happen to the baby because I'm dealing with extra stress. So can you share a little bit about that with us?
Absolutely, that's so true, Claire. Thanks to fetology studies, we know that the baby's environment really affects their development in utero. So everything from the food mom eats to the emotions that she's feeling, that is going through to baby. They receive your stress hormones. They also receive your endorphins when you're feeling happy and relaxed. So it does lead to a little bit of anxiety, and it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're anxious over what your anxiety might be, doing to your baby. And one of my clients the other day, she contacted me and she said that she felt so guilty because she was having a little bit of an off day. She needed just to have a good cry, but she felt guilty about it, and she was so worried about how her emotions were now, impacting on her baby. So I really just want to mention from our side that when we talk about how stress can impact your baby's development, we aren't necessarily talking about acute stress or just having an off day here or there. We're talking more about the sort of prolonged anxiety and stress that really results in a lot of stress hormones coming through to your baby for a long period of time. But just having an off day here or there, it's really important to acknowledge it and to really feel it and have that good cry. Be in touch with your emotions. And I think Jade might also have some input here as well. But just in terms of being able to really connect emotionally, even with your baby, it's sort of a learning point and reparenting yourself in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking, because while you were saying that, I was thinking, what if somebody is feeling that acute stress? What if they're feeling stressed every day, or it's becoming like a continuous thing? What would be your advice? Maybe Jade, I see you back on, maybe you can share with us what sort of things could moms do to avoid or deal with that acute stress they may be feeling?
Well, I would definitely suggest focused relaxation, meditation, and self-hypnosis, especially as a hypnobirthing practitioner. We do see that focused relaxation does release endorphins, and this is obviously what your baby will be receiving as well. So, in my understanding of the way we should really look at life is if something is out of your control.
Oh, shame. Jay's jumped off there. Maybe, Tamryn, maybe you can carry on. I think she was going to say something's out of your control.
Something's out of your control. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly what we're getting to. So what a lot of these fears really come down to, it's just about preparing your own mind. And through attending a course such as hypnobirthing or really any other evidence-based childbirth education course, especially if it has that component of teaching self-relaxation, it really allows you to prepare your mind so that you are ready to accept whatever challenges might come up for you. Because when you handle stress, it can be any type of stress. You're usually going to handle it in the same sort of way in terms of using these breathing exercises and, guided relaxations and self-hypnosis. All that sort of thing comes into it. And it's really just about getting those stress hormones down and just increasing your oxytocin and your endorphins. And that will relax you and allow you to deal with any sort of change in your birthing plan or change in the lockdown level, because at the end of the day, it's you as a mom who needs to birth your baby. And as humans, we've been birthing our babies for centuries in some really tumultuous times.
Yeah.
And we're never assured of having our birth partner there or who's going to be there with us. Either way, that baby is going to be born. So just preparing your mind as much as possible with these sort of self-relaxations and just gaining as much information as you can, because that knowledge really does negate many of the fears that are coming up for moms.
That's so true. And I think so often people do want to wing it and they say, oh, if people have been having babies for ages, so I'll know what to do when I get there. But I know for myself, my first baby, that was not the case. I actually wanted to jump over to something else we spoke about yesterday that I found interesting when I was talking to you. Is there a lot of people are saying that there are some positives to this pandemic. And I thought that is such a great thing to talk about, especially for pregnant women watching. So what would you say are some of the positives? I see Tamryn's jumped off now. I hope she's still there. Oh, there we go.
I'm still here. So yes, when it comes to the positives, I would say we're looking more at the postpartum period more than anything else, because we have seen quite an increase in breastfeeding rates, exclusive breastfeeding rates, because of the pandemic. And this is basically just a direct result of not having a lot of family and friends, and additional people coming through to us after our birth, wanting to hold baby and baby being passed around, and thereby you sort of miss those feeding cues. And just by being able to have that sort of baby moon, as we like to call it, just with yourself and your baby and your partner at home for, the first few weeks, it really just helps to establish that breastfeeding, and it really gets bonding off to quite a good start. So that's definitely one of the positives that we have seen. And Jade was also mentioning, about the home birth, and she herself chose that route now during the pandemic. But many of the fears that we heard from these parents are mostly related to a hospital birth. So it's things like birthing with a mask on, not possibly having your partner or your doula present with you, fear of being separated from your baby. So all I really want to say in terms of these fears is that not all birthing facilities are following the same protocols and policies at the moment. So it is important that you find out from your specific birthing facility what protocols they are following. And you can just check if they are evidence-based. So as part of the freebie that we're actually going to be giving you for attending this talk, we're going to give you a decision-making tool known as BRAINS. And it's just an acronym for really evaluating the benefits and the risks and so on for every sort of situation that you might encounter, whether it be who your care provider is, where you'll be birthing, how to feed your baby, who you should have at home and who not. It will really allow you just to evaluate every sort of option you're given so that you can go with the best option for you and your family. So we know, obviously, home birth isn't an option for everyone, financial constraints or high-risk pregnancy. So it really just comes down to seeing what your individual situation is like, knowing you do have a choice, knowing not all hospitals, for example, are following the same policy, and really see what's going to work well for you and your family, and what will be the best for you all at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think even you saying that during a pandemic, I mean, it must be even more, because when I had my babies not in a pandemic, I hadn't done my research, and I probably could have chosen a more suitable hospital. So that's such an interesting way to look at it. And I think choice is such a big one. We do have a choice. Moms have a choice, and we are allowed to use that choice. And I think that's where doulas and hypnobirth practitioners and doing that education beforehand can help you so much. I see Jade has on. Oh no, I think they're struggling with signal there. Okay. I think we've covered everything, but I see a question popped up here. I don't know if you guys can answer it. Jess is doing our tech. I wonder if she can pop it up on the screen. It says the postpartum period is called the 4th trimester. What would you recommend is a way to prepare for this? Yeah, there we go. It's up on the screen.
Oh, that's such a wonderful question. Thanks for that, Nadia. Yes, the fourth trimester. I absolutely love that way of looking at it because that's exactly what it is. You know, your baby has been inside you for 9, 10 months. You know, it's warm. They just hear mom's heartbeat. And then they're sort of thrust into this bright, busy world, you know, being handed from person to person. And you really just want to try and replicate that womb-like environment for as long as possible after the birth because you as their mom, you know, they don't realize that they're actually a separate being as yet. So a baby naturally becomes stressed when they are separated from their mom. So, you know, in terms of preparing for this fourth trimester, there's some practical things that you can do. Like Jade mentioned as well, people would be dropping off lasagnas for you, you know, have some nice food stocked up in your freezer. Look into baby wearing. The benefits of baby wearing are so numerous. Look into breastfeeding, you know, really just get informed at the end of the day, because the more information you have about this postpartum period, the better you'll be able to handle it. And I think what's really important is that you're on the same page as your partner. So don't worry so much about which pram you're going to be getting. Rather worry about who you're allowing into your space. Make sure you're on the same page, that your partner can be that protective energy that you actually need during this very sensitive time, you know, when emotions are quite hectic and baby and mom are learning, you know, how to breastfeed. And just, yes, gain as much information as you can. Do a childbirth education class, have a doula, have a lactation consultant on call. Just make sure you have this team in place because it really does take a village.
Yeah, it really does. And while you were saying that, I even remember myself when I had my kids, and I'm sure lots of people at home felt this way. It was something I didn't know happened. When I had my baby, I became like very protective. I actually didn't want anyone to touch her. I didn't want anyone to look at her. I didn't want anyone to call her cute. She was mine, and I just wanted to hold her. And I was happy with my husband and I holding her. Is that normal? Maybe Jade can tell us. Is that normal? How can you sort of work through that? I don't know. That's something I'm interested in to know more about.
I have quite a strong opinion about this. So, you know, you really look at the first 40 days as a very sacred period. From my own experience, not taking those first 40 days with my first 2 children, I didn't manage breastfeeding. I had postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. I had issues with communication with my husband, with my family. Taking those 40 days where it was just me and my baby in the bed all day, every day, really not caring about how many messages I have on my phone. I'm allowed to feel that way about my baby. I don't have to share my baby with anyone really other than my husband. And even then, my baby wants me. So in my opinion, to be honest, if you go back to our ancestors, they wouldn't have had their baby being passed from one person to the other, to the other, to the other, because back then you'd have predators, you'd have a whole host of other factors at play. So really, our babies would be attached to us, and that's where they would feel safe. If we look at the continuum concept, it's the exact same thing. We mimic the womb on the outside, and the only way to do that is by baby hearing our heart rate, which they've memorized. They know the way our heart beats. They know the way we breathe. They know the way we respond to certain situations. So we're supposed to want to feel that way about our baby, and it's a blessing to feel that way about your baby too, especially in this.
And it's actually, yeah, it's actually almost a relief to hear, maybe even for moms at home, a relief to hear you're allowed to be that protective mother bear or whatever it is, because you get those sort of messages from people where like, oh, you're too much, you're being too sensitive. And I actually just love that feeling when someone else had her and I heard her cry. I love that feeling of her coming back. I needed her as much as she needed me almost. So yeah, it's quite reassuring. I wonder if we have any other questions coming through. Jess, I don't know if you can pop any more on the screen. I'm trying to check you on Facebook. Oh, shame. Love how you turn a painful experience to help other women. I think that was directed towards Jade just now. Such a lovely one. Here we have another question. How would you encourage moms and even dads to connect with their unborn babies? That's a great one. Who wants to take this one? Tamryn.
Yeah, so Shane, this is actually another fear that did come up when we were chatting with a few of the parents. There's really this disappointment that their partners and their older children aren't able to necessarily attend scans during the pregnancy. So, maybe see if you can do a video call during the scan so that your partner can still see what's happening, ask any relevant questions. But this isn't the only way to bond with your baby already. So really take advantage of this time, especially now when we find ourselves in a lockdown and we aren't socializing so much outside of the house. Really enjoy this. You can take videos and photos, encourage older children to talk with their sibling, to play with the tummy. When a baby is still inside, they can actually tell the difference between the different types of touches that they experience. So they know mom's gentle caress. They also know dad's playful tickle. They know their older siblings poking, and they will respond and they play back. There was actually this wonderful story that I saw the other day during a documentary. And what they did was they were tracking babies' behavior inside the womb and then in the first few years of life. And they took two twins. And during pregnancy, from about 20 weeks onwards, the one very active twin would sort of touch the sister between, because they were in two different sacs, and they would sort of play with each other through this curtain of the amniotic sac. And then when they tracked their development at 2 years of age, they were playing the exact same game. Their favorite game was to stand on either side of a sheer curtain and play with each other and basically repeat the behavior that they had shown within the womb. So we sometimes forget that these little babies are already people. And they recognize voices, really sing and talk to baby. The birth that I was at just this morning, when baby was born and she heard dad's voice, she looked up, and that was the first time she really opened her eyes wide, and she was looking for dad because she recognized his voice, and she became so alert. It's really just so beautiful to see. So yes, talking, singing, playing with baby.
Sure. Thanks, Tamryn. That I actually got goosebumps. The thought of them through the curtain, that was so beautiful. And I think something that that we're not always aware of. A lot of the times people think, well, baby's there and we here, and then only once they're born, now they're part of everything. So I think that's such a great one. I wanted to ask another question. I saw someone ask it the other day. I'm jumping a little bit, but sorry, I missed the thing on the screen. If you are going to be having a Caesar and you know you're going to be having a Caesar, do you feel like it's still beneficial to have a doula? Is it still beneficial to do hypnobirthing? Because I wish I'd done more of it, but I didn't know that it was possible. Or
Jade, would you like to answer this one, especially considering you've had a cesarean?
I would recommend having a doula in every event, absolutely every event. And, I would even say even more so in the events of a cesarean, especially for single mothers. I would also like to acknowledge single mothers in this situation. Your baby is separated from you. It would be really, really take that stress and that worry off of your chest while you're laying there and they're kind of stitching you back together, that you have someone that's on your side, that really knows you, they care for you. You're not just another number to them, that is with your baby. Because as a doula, that's what you get to do in a cesarean. You get to go with the baby. You get to sit, you get to talk to that.
Was jumping a little bit. Oh, sorry, we've lost Jade again. I was going to carry on from what she was saying. I realize now how beneficial it could have been, because my husband had never had a baby before. He didn't know what was going on. And I needed that person the first time to be my voice, because I wasn't able to have that voice. Tamryn, is there anything you want to end off with before we move on to the closing?
Yes, yeah. So just to add on to the value, so the birth that I was at this morning actually ended up in an emergency cesarean. So I have some very fresh knowledge from this side of the question. When it comes to the support that a doula provides, we're really quite flexible, and it depends on the needs of that specific family. So even, two moms who are both having scheduled cesareans, they're going to have different needs, and they'll both benefit from a doula in different ways. So some may benefit more from educational support throughout the pregnancy, knowing what to expect, how to prepare, and so forth. Others benefit more from that physical support. So a cute example from this morning's birth is the anesthetist actually asked for me to stand in front of mom to support her, because she was worried that dad would pass out when she placed the epidural, because she had that just a few hours earlier. So dad was able to sit comfortably, look mom in the face, not worry about passing out, and really just connect while I was providing more of that sort of physical support. So it really just depends on the couple, but absolutely, there's a way and a mean for us to support in any situation.
And so necessary. I think it's so needed in today's sort of structure in a hospital. Yeah, I'm going to jump to this question. I'm preparing for a natural vaginal birth. However, do I prepare for a C-section should there be an emergency?
How do I prepare for C-section? Should there be an emergency? Yes. So yes, I would say firstly it comes down to your care provider. Trusting your care provider implicitly, so that if there is a change in your birth narrative from what you are expecting, that you're never left wondering whether or not it was necessary. So first things first is having a care provider that you trust implicitly, and if, for example, they do call for an emergency cesarean, that it was needed. That just helps with that sort of mental recovery afterwards, knowing that this was the best, choice for you and your baby. Aside from that, have a separate birth preferences or birth plan for in the event of a cesarean, so that the theatre staff know what is important to you. So if skin to skin is really important, if delayed cord clamping is really important, if you like to establish breastfeeding as soon as possible, if you still really want dad to cut the cord, whatever is important to you, put that down, and they will often still try and honor as many of your birth wishes as possible in that situation. And if you have gone with a positive care provider from the start, then they usually will try and honor all of those as much as possible, and really just mentally prepare yourself for maybe what situation you might find yourself needing an emergency cesarean in, and just all of that mental preparation helps you to work towards it, and just knowing what to expect, what the order and the process would be.
I see here, Robin Lee Havenker says, I didn't have a doula at my son's birth, so I regretted it because the pressure came down on hubby to support me on his own. He was so scared. And I think that's common. Yeah,
it's tough. And when you are in labor as a birthing mom, you are so sensitive to the emotions and the states of the people around you, that if your partner is anxious, you are going to feel that. And obviously anxiety is not a friend in labor. It suppresses that oxytocin, and it might even cause your labor to rest or stall. So a doula is often there even more so for the dad than for the mom, reassuring him, this is normal. Here's how you do this counter pressure. And oftentimes, even though dads may be the most hesitant to have a doula, after the birth, they turn into the world's biggest doula advocates. And it isn't really fair to place that pressure on the dad. Like I usually say to my clients, expecting dad to be the sole birth partner if he has never experienced a woman in labor or having birth is sort of like letting him watch a rugby game on TV and then he needs to go coach the box. It's quite an unrealistic expectation, and having a doula there takes a little bit of pressure off and really just allows him to be the best birth partner that he can be, because the doula is an expert on sort of pregnancy and birth, but you as a partner are the expert on your partner, and so we make an awesome team together and really puts the dads at ease as well. They can be as involved as they want or need to be, and just so present.
Oh, thanks so much, Tamryn. And I've seen the value firsthand by not having the doula. So, and I'm sure lots of people see that now watching. So I think we're going to wrap up there for now. I just wanted to also announce that there is a prize for someone who's watching. So it can be now if you're watching live or if you watch the replay, but you need to put shared in the comments. So you need to just say shared. If you think this is something you'd like to win, it's a 5-week, am I right, Tamryn? 5-week online hypnobirthing course. And if you are someone who can't use it, you can also gift it to somebody else who can use it. So yeah, please put it in the comments now. You can put shared and share it. If you feel like sharing it with friends and family, you can tag people who you think would like to win it. Yeah, just spread it as far and wide as possible. I can see the comments coming through that people can really see the value in this wonderful information we've been sharing and the wonderful experts have been sharing. So please share it far and wide. We just want more and more people to know about what doulas and hypnobirth practitioners and conscious birthing people do. Yeah. So thank you, Tamryn. I know Jade can pop back on for us to say goodbye. Shame.
There she comes.
Coming back on slowly.
From my side, I just want to say a big thank you to Helen Digby from Mama Melon. Without her and a lot of the content and research she also did for us for this interview, it wouldn't have been possible. So we just want to say a really big thank you for the effort and time that she also put into developing the content for today's interview.
Definitely. Yeah, I second that as well. Thank you for mentioning that. And then I just wanted to thank both of you. Thank you, Tamryn. Thank you, Jade, for joining us. Shame, I know you had the load shedding, so it's been a bit crazy, but I'm glad we could still chat. So thanks, both of you, for joining. And then I just wanted to thank Jess for all the tech stuff behind the scenes. It's been amazing to see the questions come up and to be able to interact so nicely. So thank you. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. As I said, please share it with friends and family. If you haven't registered, please register on the website. The link is going to be going up. And yeah, we hope to see you at the next talk on Thursday, all about effective communication with babies and toddlers. So it follows on from here. And if you're pregnant, it will be just as beneficial. So yeah,
it's going to be fantastic. Yes. And if they want to get in touch with us afterwards,
yes,
they're welcome. Just to have a look at my website, it's www.shaktibirths.co.za.
There, it's going at the bottom. I forgot about that. Thanks, Tamryn. And I think Jade's will go across the bottom as well. Jade's there we go, Sacred Soul Birth Services. So we'll also be putting those links in the email that will be coming to you if you have registered. So if you haven't, please do, because the more you register, the more info you're going to get. You're also going to get the freebie, and you stand the chance to win the big prize. So thanks, everyone. I hope you all have a lovely day. And from everyone here, we will see you on Thursday. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.